Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of The Trading Bell. My name is Maalika, Kazia, and of course today we're taking a deep look at the advertising industry, and I'm actually at the offices of WPP-Scangroup, and I'm talking to the Chief Executive Officer, that is Bharat Thakrar, and we're going to get into the nuances that are surrounding the advertising industry as well as this company in particular, and of course pick his brain about what he thinks are some of the trends that are happening within advertising, whether that's we're talking digital or beyond. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to speak with you.
Absolutely. So even as we get right into the conversation, you know, the advertising space, it has evolved so much over the last couple of years, especially when we talk about the digital age and the digital revolution and the advent of social media, you know, reaching that peak as we've seen in quite a few markets. What would you say is the current state of advertising in Kenya as well as Africa as a whole?
I think it's more what's happening globally, because I think what's happening, I think now, as you know, the world has become a very small place, and I think technology has really made that happen. So I just give you a very simple example of what used to happen, and what used to happen is not helping our clients anymore. Okay, so if you looked at 15 years ago, television was the main medium, radio was a more penetrating medium, and so it was a simple exercise of create a piece of communication. So create a TV ad or create a campaign. You run the campaign on above the line media, which was TV, radio, print, and that was it. And the message was always very passive. Okay. So it was like, I am this great product, I can do ABC, and therefore, please buy me. Okay? And then we used emotional hooks to convince people. So it was more like, I don't know if a lot of viewers will remember the old Omo advertising that used to happen, right? You had two kids coming out of neighboring houses, and one of the kids, the shirt was more whiter than the other one, and the other mother was more prouder because her son wore a shirt that was more brighter.
Yes.
So it was like, Omo makes your clothes more brighter, and so that woman was more successful. She knew what decisions to make for her children, and buying the detergent was a good decision. Now that sort of advertising doesn't work anymore. Pure and simple, consumers have changed, the way they think has changed. And I think more important is today everybody's exposed because of technology. If you look at the mobile phone, right? You can go and Google anything. You can find out more about anything. So everybody's become a lot more intelligent in terms of their expectation from the products or services that they buy. So they have become a lot more discerning. Okay, so passive, emotional hook advertising doesn't work anymore. Number one. Number two is not everybody watches TV. In the old days, everyone tuned on to the 9 p.m. news. So if you put your ad before that, you know, you're bound
golden.
to get, you're done. You got this blanket coverage. You took a front page solace, what you used to call FPS. You take a page 3 or page 7, take a full page ad, and everybody's seen your ad. Today it's changed, right? Not everybody is reading the newspapers, not everybody is watching TV. But more important, even if they are watching TV, TV is still a strong penetrating medium, and so is radio. I think it's more about how can you engage with the, with the consumer positively.
So on a deeper level as well.
Yeah, but it's more about the consumer needs to like you as a brand. The consumer needs to have a good feeling about you as a brand to be considered. Okay, so what we call is just generating awareness. So tomorrow if I stopped you and asked you, do you know of detergents that are available, you'd probably 1, 2 and 3, you'll probably remember the names, yeah, because you know, I mean, you've seen the advertising somewhere on the line. But the one that comes on what we call top of mind, okay, we call that TOMA score. So what is a TOMA score? TOMA score means what is top of mind. So if you are closer to top of mind, you're more likely to consider buying the product. Okay, if you're not top of mind, then you're not going to bother about buying the product, right? So I think the key thing is, how can we make the brands top of mind? How can we make the consumers likability score higher for the particular brand? Okay, so that it's an opportunity. It started off as a challenge. Now it's an opportunity. So the idea is, how can we engage with each and every consumer, right, in scale and in a timely manner. So we want to be able to reach out to every consumer in a timely manner and be able to engage with the consumer. So if the brand engages with you, you're more likely to buy the product. Okay. So if you look at a much more sophisticated product like a motor car, okay, what you will do, because the investment is high, you will take your time, you will investigate, you'll go to the showroom, you look at 3-4 different cars, you'll consider which ones you want to buy, you will Google them, you will look at their specs, pricing, everything, and then you'll come to a pretty conclusive decision.
Yes.
Because, so what has happened, there's been a lot more engagement before a decision is made for a very expensive product like a car. But if you go down the scale and look at more daily consumer products or services, right, then that is a lot less engaging for you. Okay. Another example is an airline. When you're booking online, the engagement you have with the airline is starting from the time you book, from the time you check in, from the time you board the aircraft. So you are engaging with the brand at various different stages. And if one of those experiences is bad, the overall experience is seen as negative. Right? So our job as custodians of our clients' brands is to help them navigate their way across all this. So how can we find easier ways in scale to engage with the brand? How can we make sure that the experience that you are facing is well recorded? We are then advising the clients in terms of how they can improve their different engagements so that the overall TOMA stays high, and therefore the consideration is higher for them to buy a particular brand. Okay? So what is happening is that the whole industry, about 3 years ago, everybody said, oh, the advertising industry is now dead. It's being seriously, disrupted by technology. But I think the truth of the matter is that's not what happens. What has happened is our industry has seen a huge structural change in the way we service our clients. It's not just about creating an ad anymore. Yeah? We still have to be creative, but how can we be creative in a manner, in a way that we can engage with consumers a lot more proactively, okay? And therefore, what we do now and what's happening not only here globally is we use a lot of technology. So we're using a lot of technology to be able to engage more effectively.
So
okay?
It's not that it has led to the structure becoming obsolete, but it's revolutionized it.
Yeah, absolutely. So therefore, we've had to change the way we think. We've had to change the way the kind of quality of offering that we give. Okay, so we have to build a huge technology offering now. Okay, so fortunately for Scangroup, in 2010, we invested in a very strong technology setup company called Squad, right, which was a joint venture between us and a very big technology company in India, and that helped us get into that space. So Squad was always ahead of the game in terms of technology because the foundation was more developers. The foundation was more it was all about how can we make technology, how can we use technology to engage with customers and consumers. Okay, so I'll give you an example of what we've done recently in Squad. We've developed a platform which is used by banks called Optimus. Okay. And what this platform does is, when you hypothetically, if you're online and you look for a bank to buy a house loan, okay, and you see this particular ad of a particular bank, and you will send a message to that, or you'll go onto their website and there'll be this thing, contact us. You will write a message to them that I would like to get a car loan or a house loan. What used to happen is there was no one attending to that message when it got to the bank. Or if there was somebody attending to it, it was manually done. Okay, so what we've done is we've automated that process. So now when a lead is created, the lead is immediately followed up, right? So the lead goes to the right person in the bank, and we try and then the lead, there is follow up on the lead with you. So up to a point where you've taken the house loan. Once you've taken the house loan, then we will end up cross-selling something to you. So what about insurance? What about a credit card, etc., okay? Because by this time, we have a lot more information. The bank has a lot more information about you, right? They know who you are. They know what your net worth is. They know what your family structure, etc.
So it's targeted.
So it's a lot more targeted, right? So how can we use data? How can we analyze that data more effectively, right? So we call it data analytics. And how can we better target you messaging? So when you get messaging is more targeted towards you, okay?
Okay.
Another example I give you is that there's no point us talking to men when we are talking about hair care and beauty products, right? We should be targeting more to women, and we should be targeting more to a targeted group of women who are likely to buy that product, right? So it's about targeting the messaging, it's about being more relevant to the consumers and finding the channels that are real time.
Well, we're going to take a very short break right now, but of course we'll continue this conversation. Stay with me. So when it comes to targeting the audience, and we've seen, especially with social media platforms like Facebook, there's also been this bit of a tug of war when it comes to privacy, because how much of your information can be given to a company who wants to target you for their products, for instance, and the access that they have. So how do you kind of maneuver that thin line that a lot of people have been talking about?
I think there are two parts to this, right? One is privacy in terms of who you are as an individual. Okay, so you are an individual with a name. There's a lot more information about you, personal information. Okay, it's not. We don't want that personal information. All we want is to profile you. So we'll profile you as a target between the ages of X and Y, whether you're a male or a female. Your likes are this, or your dislikes are this, right? So it's more generally profiling you. Okay, that's the sort of data that we want. We don't want data about your individual person as you as a person, right? We don't want to know your date of birth. We don't want to know, those more specific personal information. And I think this is what I think there's a lot of confusion about, right? Globally, not only here. So it's more about the IP that you are. Who is the IP that is communicating, right, all the time? And therefore we can then profile you, and then we direct messaging as to that IP as being an individual.
So you think there's some disconnect in understanding between the line of privacy, personal, and just profiling you as a general individual in this category?
Absolutely. I think this is where the big arguments are now taking place globally, right? Facebook is saying that we're not sharing personal data about the individual. What you're sharing is personal profile about that IP of that particular phone, laptop that you're using.
Okay.
So that the messaging can be a lot more targeting, which is probably also not bad for the consumer. Put it this way, right? If you are interested in going for a holiday, hypothetically, right? The minute you start Googling holidays, the next thing you will see is that the ads that are served to you are holiday destinations, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that is called programmatic media. So what is happening is that the search engine in Google has identified you that you're now looking for a holiday, and they've figured out approximately, because of where you're going for a holiday, what type of person you are. Then they start serving you messages about that. Then airline advertising will start throwing at you. Then if you are looking at one particular destination, then you will find from that destination hotels are targeting you.
And sometimes it happens very strangely, where you haven't really Googled, you just think about it, and for some very weird reason it pops up.
No, there's no weird reason. The reason is simple. Because you are searching for a particular subject, right? The programmatic platform at Google identifies you straight away, right? Like because the programmatic picks up my age. So they start sending me ads about diabetes and you know what I mean?
Not the fun things.
Not the fun things, right? Because they think I need that, right?
Yeah.
So because they've identified who you are, roughly, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, because then what is happening is the messaging is more targeted and it's more relevant.
It's serving you better.
It's more relevant, more important, right? I mean, I sometimes use this example because it's a pretty gross, not a gross, but it's very, it kind of puts it straight in perspective, right? There's no point sending messages on sanitary products to men, right? So it's targeted pretty much. So I think it goes to that extent.
Okay.
And I think there is, and also remember one other thing is that advertising gets more and more expensive, right? Therefore, clients want it to be more and more targeted. They want better ROI, right? For every dollar they spend, they want better return.
Yes.
What we were doing in the old days was we were blitzing advertising. So every billboard, every hoarding, on mass television, the message was coming out. And then you kind of think about it, that the consumers that we are really targeting are really that small. We're not targeting the whole universe.
So it's served its purpose, it's streamlined it as well. But let's move closer to home, of course. And you set up Scangroup, I believe, in the 1980s. And, we've seen it evolve. And very recently, the board also approved the sale of some of the assets in East and West Africa. So tell me more about this development.
Okay, so I think what you're referring to is the Kantar transaction, which we took over about 18 months ago. Now, we are majority owned by WPP. 56% is WPP. The rest is, including myself, the rest is listed on the Securities Exchange. I think that globally, WPP had two issues. They had a large amount of debt, which they needed to reduce. Number two is they felt that of all the businesses they had, the research business was going to be likely to be more legacy business now, because a lot of data is picked up with what you're doing online. Therefore, therefore the growth in this area was likely to be a lot less faster than in any other industry.
Okay.
So globally, they decided they wanted to sell it off. Okay. So they invited various multiple organizations to bid for it. There was a bidding that took place. They found a suitor, and they've sold 60% of the business globally, which meant that they created a special SPV to take on the entire Kantar business into one SPV. Then that SPV 60% gets diluted, and Bain Capital takes the 60%, and WPP globally remains 40% shareholder. That means we have to now to sell the business, right? So we already sold the business, sold as in we've signed all that paperwork, all the SPAs have been signed. We're now waiting for approvals. We need shareholders' approval, which will probably be sometime in the end of January. We've already made an announcement in the media of this transaction. We're then waiting for certain other regulatory approvals from some of the countries where we operate.
So how do you see that impacting sales, for instance, revenues, and of course the direction which the company is going to be taking in the near future?
Well, you see, for us the direction doesn't change because we are still running in the technology space. We still work closely with Kantar like we were doing before. That doesn't change. Obviously, there is going to be, because Kantar was quite a significant amount of our top line, right? So that will be impacted next year and years going forward.
Okay.
But I think the return that the shareholders are getting is worth the sale that we had to do. So I think the shareholders are getting a pretty decent return in terms of what we paid for it and what we are now getting paid for, right? So the company is going to show a pretty decent profit, which again we declared when we made the announcement.
And you also had the special dividend that you gave shareholders in June this year. What can shareholders expect for Q4?
We are betting we are hedging our bets on terms of what we think the future is going to be looking for. And I think for us, technology is really key, right? So having invested in Optimus, we've also just launched a very, very nice app called Gobi, G-O-B-Y. And Gobi is an app for SMEs, okay? And any SME can download the app from Google Store, from the Google App Store, and in half an hour they can create their own website, they can transact business with their customers, and it is almost like we've set up a Gobi online mall, so they are part of that mall. Next year we will start promoting the Gobi mall, right? So and I think the advantage that a lot of these SMEs have, they don't have huge funds to market, right?
Yes.
But if they're part of the mall, we'll market the mall. You come to the mall, you search what you want, and all the stores that offer that particular service will be available for you.
So a
and
virtual
then you can,
mall.
So it's a virtual mall, yes. You're going to call it the virtual Gobi Mall. And you pay rent every month. The rent is a subscription, right? And then you can advertise online. You can create your website online for $3 a month. So it's a pretty inexpensive way of marketing. So if somebody's making cakes, somebody is bringing in shirts, they want to sell that as a side hustle. You know, Kenyans do a lot of side hustle, right? So this really helps anyone who's doing a side hustle to download this app.
Majority of the businesses in Kenya currently come under the MSME sector as it is.
Right.
So it's interesting. But even as we wrap up, you know, a lot of people have had this sort of, I wouldn't say entirely negative, but a very frustrated perspective when it comes to the economy and the slump that we're facing right now. So just your comments on that and how you think the near future, even 2020, is going to be for the economy picking up and the flow of money and the flow of businesses actually getting to a higher point.
I think sometimes we get negative, which is not good for us, right? Kenyans, if you look at Kenyans, I think everywhere, I think we just get a lot more pessimistic about it. I think the opportunity is what we should be looking for, right? We are a young country. We have a higher, age group that is under the age of 18, right? We have a vibrant political system, right? That is functioning well, despite everything that people may be critical about, right? Streets are safe. Okay, your money is safe in the bank. In terms of our exchange rate, we are doing well, right? So Kenya is a strong economy, and I think it's all about us just having a positive mindset, right? And I think developing countries will continue to grow. When you kind of think about the developed countries, where there is negative growth, if you look at countries like Germany, they're going into recession, right? I mean, people there need to be worried. Okay, we don't need to be worried in that respect, in my view. I mean, I think the challenges are always there, wherever you operate. There's not a single country in the world that doesn't have challenges.
There's no utopic idea.
Yeah, there's nobody. There's no ideal scenario anywhere, right? I think it's just a mindset, and so I'm despite everything else, I'm very optimistic, and I think technology is really what is changing everybody, right? I mean, look at the example I'm giving you now. A guy importing or making shirts or cakes had no way of advertising economically. There was no way of him telling people, I've got my wares, right? Now we have Gobi, a simple app that costs you $3 a month, right? And with that, you can advertise your product, you can track your customers, you can deal with them. And it's like an e-commerce site that we are creating for everybody. Now imagine, we're getting Kenyans into the e-commerce space, and that's the future.
So technology has, also allowed a much wider net.
I mean, look at the growth where China is getting. China is getting that growth because you have these platforms that sell the product. Because they sell the product, they make it available to masses. The guys who are making the products are making money. So the industry is being created. Small-scale industries or large-scale industries being created. People making product, and you've got buyers to sell the product, right? That's all you want.
Okay.
So keep everybody, keep the economy rolling.
So we're going to stay optimistic and positive 2020.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us and for speaking to us today on The Trading Bell.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
And there you go. On this episode of The Trading Bell, we dug deep into the advertising industry, not just in Kenya, but globally. And we had a lot of insights from CEO Bharat Thakrar. Of course, you can keep up with The Trading Bell via our social media handles that are appearing on your screen. Once again, my name is Maalika, Kazia. Thank you for keeping it with The Trading Bell.